Hey there, my name is Danny Leibrandt, and welcome back to Local Marketing Secrets. Today, I'm joined by Tony Ricketts, the founder and CEO of Lawnline Marketing. Over the past 9 years, Tony has grown Lawnline into one of the most recognized niche agencies in the country, serving more than 200 lawn and landscape companies and generating over $3 million in annual revenue. Beyond Lawnline, Tony is also the founder of Crystal Insights, a new AI-powered call analysis software, and Agency Titan, a platform in development to help digital marketing agencies manage their business and fulfillment. In this episode, we'll dive into Tony's journey from being a hands-on web developer to becoming a systems-driven agency leader, why niching down is the key to growth, and what trends in marketing are shaping the future for service businesses. Now, without further ado, Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, Danny, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely, man. So I wanted to dive into your background, and I found this really interesting. So you had an agency before your current agency, but what I didn't know, and you just mentioned to me, is that you're actually a software engineer before that first agency. Can you just tell me more about that and more of your background?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it starts back from when I was a kid, actually. I started learning coding and programming when I was about 10 years old, which would have been in the early 90s, and started to understand how the internet worked right when the internet first came out. It was something I was very obsessed with and passionate about. And as I grew older, I stayed with it, continued to stay up to date on the latest technologies and stuff like that. Now, again, this was 20 some years ago, right? So, and all those technologies now are all dated and antique stuff. But
Mhm.
I did that all through high school. And then after I graduated high school, I went to college and I got a formal degree in software engineering. And then I went and worked for some marketing agencies actually doing the software side of the business. So after I decided to go out and do some stuff on my own, I started Ricketts Web Design, which is the first agency that you're referring to. And that was kind of a mixture between a custom SaaS company and a marketing agency kind of put together. So what we would do is companies would come to us and they would want us to build their custom software to be able to run their businesses. Most of them are like local type businesses. And then they would want us to promote that software for them and promote their businesses. So we kind of had both sides into it. And I ran that business for about 10 years before I decided that it was very difficult to scale. It was very difficult to scale because we would work with anybody, right? It was more of a generalist type agency. And every industry that we worked with, we'd have to relearn their industry. We would have to build software from scratch. It was chasing projects, didn't have a lot of reoccurring revenue. And growing a software business is very expensive. Software engineers are very expensive, and it was we didn't have AI like we have today, so it was a very difficult business to be able to scale to the point where I wanted it to. So that's where I decided that I wanted to change the focus and focus on the reoccurring revenue side, which was the marketing side.
Mm.
And I decided that I needed something to be more productized, something that we can repeat over and over and over, because that's the only way to scale. You know, I was once told a saying that stuck with me forever, and that is, if your business requires specialists to scale, it will never scale. So the first business I had required specialists in every aspect of it, from the software engineers to when we went to the marketing side to having, senior ad buyers and things like that. And it was very difficult to scale. So we decided that we needed to find a niche where we could put together a systematic approach to all of the marketing services that we were offering and build that into more of a prepackaged program that we can resell and re-execute at scale. And that's exactly what we did. And that's how Lawnline was born. So we decided to choose the lawn and landscape industry. There were a couple of different reasons why we chose that, which I'm happy to dive into if you're interested. But we decided on lawn and landscape. And over the last nearly 10 years that we've been running Lawnline, our programs have shifted as we've seen and tested results across, probably at this point, hundreds of millions of dollars in ad spend, and leads generated to be able to dial it in so that we can continuously grow and scale a business model that was very difficult to scale in the past, which was all about coming up with those very specific programs and re-executing them repeatedly.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's super interesting. You come from the software background, and I saw you have this new SaaS, or at least software company, Crystal Insights, And, I see a lot of people trying to get into software, but to know now it's like, oh, dang, that's actually your background. That's where you came from. That's super cool.
Right. Yeah. And I wanted to go into the software side because that's my roots. That's where I started. But I needed in my personal life and journey, I needed the marketing side to learn what I didn't know back then when I wanted to start the software side of the business. So when I was running Ricketts Web Design, it was more SaaS development, but I was developing SaaS for other people, right? I was building their dreams and what they wanted to do. And I didn't build stuff for myself. And that's what Crystal Insights is about not only solving a problem that we saw and needed to solve in online marketing for the agency, but actually building something for myself versus building something for everybody else. So that was kind of one of the big changes. And with my background being in software engineering, this one was a lot easier to start executing and build with my background, with the funding that Lawnline offered and all of those types of stuff versus being a broke college kid trying to find my way.
Yeah, definitely. Let's touch on Crystal Insights a little bit later. I want to go back into the niche stuff, because even though I don't know, it feels kind of basic. A lot of people that I've talked to are still trying to find a niche. Either they're just about to start an agency, or maybe they've had a generalist agency for a while and now they're looking to niche down. You explained a little bit of why niching down, but why specifically did you choose lawn and landscape?
So there were a couple of reasons, and it actually led up to a previous failure is where lawn and landscape came from. So I knew that I needed to niche down. And my first niche was not actually lawn and landscape. It was my second niche. My first niche was real estate. And I failed miserably in real estate. And I'm happy to talk about failures because failures are what push you forward and how you learn. So when I first started niching down, I chose real estate. And one thing that I learned from there was that we had about a dozen clients. And one thing I learned is when we would generate a lead for them, it could be a long time before they actually saw money from that lead. These were real estate agents that we were working with. So whether we've got them a buyer or a seller lead, as I'm sure people spend months looking for houses, right? So Danny, you're looking to buy a home and you go and click on one of our realtors ads and you reach out to the realtor and you start looking for a home, but it may be 6 months before they ever make $1 off of you. Right.
Yeah.
And that made it very difficult. To keep the clients long-term, right? The churn would come very quickly after just a couple of months and not seeing real dollars coming into the bank account, regardless of how many leads were generated. So one of the things that I learned from that was that I needed a niche where we could put money in the bank for the client right away. So that was one of my number one things I looked at when I decided, okay, this is not working. We've spent like 6 months trying to build this real estate side and we've made thousands of dollars, right? And I mean, thousands, like not 10, like a couple of $1,000 over like 6 months. So this obviously is not going to work and we need to find a way to shift. So there were a couple of things that we looked at. Number one was we had to be able to get the client dollars in their bank account right away. Another thing that we looked at is I wanted a niche that had an abundance of companies that we could go after. Whereas like say in real estate where I went with, there's only so many realtors and there are a lot of realtors, don't get me wrong. But one thing that I didn't realize is that, when you want to pull in data from their MLS, that you're stuck to the realtors in that MLS. So the scalability of the real estate side was very difficult. Well, with lawn and landscape between the US and Canada, there's like 600,000 companies.
Yeah.
So that was very attractive to me that there's a huge pool of potential customers that we can go after here. So it checked those first two boxes. And then the final thing that we ended up deciding on lawn and landscape is because when I was in college getting my software engineering degree, I spent 2 years working on a landscaping crew, doing mostly softscape installations and landscape maintenance. And knowing a little bit about the industry, I decided that this would be a good fit because it checks those first couple of boxes. And I know a little bit about the industry. Let's go after this. One other thing we did look at while we were doing this, which I would not recommend looking at this today, we kind of touched on this prior to the podcast starting here, was I did look to see which niche didn't have a ton of agencies already going after it. Now, at this time, there were hardly any going after lawn and landscape, and that was one reason that we chose it as well. but I would not use that as an indicator today to determine which niche to go into, right? Just because there's other agencies going after a specific niche doesn't mean there's not plenty of room for everybody, right? And that's my opinion. So you mentioned, how many clients that we work with, and we're the largest multi-million-dollar agency focusing on this space, and we have less than 1% of the industry.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's plenty of room for everybody out there. So if you're looking for your niche to go into and you're starting your marketing agency and you want to really do plumbing and HVAC, don't worry that there's 300 other agencies
Yeah.
after it, right? Do you, right? If that's the industry and you feel like you can be successful in, then go for it. Go after it.
Yeah, definitely. No, like I was mentioning at before the call, that's part of the reason I chose pest control is because at least at the 7-figure agency seminar that I was at, it seemed like no one else was doing pest control. But now that there are obviously other people doing pest control, and it seems like more or less every industry kind of evens out. Like, there's not many pest control companies, so that makes sense that there's going to be less agencies, but still it's relatively, I'd say, the same amount of competition, but obviously there's different aspects. That's also something I wanted to ask you as, well, then how can you compete with these other agencies? Even though you guys only have like a small percent of the market share, you guys still have a big agency. How do you win over these other agencies?
So one of the things that I've always focused on is I do want to be the best, right? That's never out of sight. We always want to be the best, but it's not about being the best. It's about being the best known,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's what's going to help you grow and beat some of these other places. People like comfort. And if they've seen a name over and over and over many times over the years, they feel comfortable in that name, right?
Mm.
So, like, if we were to look at other non-related industries and services, let's say something like handling your payroll for your business, very important aspect, right? Same thing with your marketing. It's an entire department of your business. There's big names out there like, Paychex and companies like that handle payroll for companies. And they may not be the best, but they're the best known. And as a
Mm.
business owner, maybe this small company over here that nobody's ever heard of is actually the best. But I'm going to be terrified to give them something so important and pay so much money when I know that this company over here will at least get the job done, right? Will they be as good as this company over here? Maybe not, but they're going to get the job done. Otherwise, they wouldn't be where they are today. So having that, being the best known, helps comfort the buyers when they come to you. So in the art industry and marketing, I always say that we're looked at like a mechanic, right? We're never
Mm.
trusted, right? Every time you go
Yeah.
to the mechanic place and you need your windshield wipers changed, you come back with a list of $5,000 and stuff that needs done to your car, right? And
Hmm.
I wouldn't drive it away if I were you, right? That's how they make you
Yeah.
feel. And everybody that we deal with has a horror story working with the marketing agency, and they don't trust them. They don't like them. So being the best known that's not a wall that we have to break down when we start our sales process with potential clients. We don't have to convince them that we're not going to rip them off and run away with their money and they're going to get nothing out of it, right? We're beyond that level because of the reputation that we've built in the space. So going back to your original question, how do you beat out those other agencies? Being the best known is one of the biggest things. Social proof is another big thing. When they see you're working with the other people that they know in the industry and look up to and see that you've helped them get there, then that's going to help you be able to close more clients. Also, being consistent is another big thing. When I first brought salespeople into the agency, I always wanted to ensure that when somebody would ask us a question, they didn't get that salesperson's answer. They got Lawnline's answer. So
Mm.
every salesperson that comes into our company, they have to go through a 6-month training process that's very long. It deals with shadowing and training. But one of the key ways that I built the systems to train that is we built a list of every single question we were ever asked. This is before AI, and we had a human listen to every single sales call that we had over the years, and they notated down every question that was asked and the answer that we gave to that question. And then our salespeople study that like a server would a menu working in a restaurant, right? So that whenever you ask a server a question about, hey, what's on this dish, or, how it can be cooked or whatever, they all give the same answer, the same response. And that's what we wanted to put in place with our sales team, so that when you're asking questions, whether it's from an experienced salesperson or not, you're still getting the proper and correct answers that deliver the value that the person is looking for and asking about. So when you put all those things together, that's where you're going to really start. It's not about the competition. It's about focusing on you and making sure that you're presenting yourself in the best possible way, and don't even worry about what the competition is. If you look at like our pricing, for example, a lot of people will say shop on price. We're the most expensive agency out there compared to everybody else. If we have a entry level program that small companies that are just getting started can get on, but outside of that, your minimal investment in our fees is $50,000 a year, and that's where we start in pricing, right? That's our base level price point, which puts us higher than 99% of all the other agencies just in our base level pricing. Let's not even discuss the $100,000 plus programs that we have that you'll have to put out in order to be on one of our bigger programs. So it's all about how you frame it, present it, who you are as an agency, and all of those things put together. It's no one individual thing.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. I really like that first point on, you don't necessarily have to be the best, but you have to be the best known. I totally relate with that, and it makes complete sense, because the goal is to get everyone to the bottom of the funnel, right? So you can't get people to the bottom of the funnel if you don't build up that massive top of funnel, and everyone knows about you. Now I don't know, a lot of people will probably fall through the funnel. They might not need you or whatever, but a lot of people just naturally knowing you, then they'll bring them down to like and trust you, and the whole funnel thing there. And also, I was going to mention that the same thing can be applied to home service companies, right? This is like a huge part that they need to focus on.
Absolutely. 100%. Being the best known is a big thing. That's why you see companies like plumbing and HVAC companies that have much larger marketing budgets than lawn care pest companies. That's why they buy TV commercials, and that's why they buy the billboards and do all those things, so that you can constantly see that name over and over and over and over. You see what I'm saying? So how we started it in getting that recognition in the industry is by attending industry events and conferences. So we got our very first customer through the Equip Expo, which used to be called the GIE, or Green Industry Expo, back in, what was that, 2016 is when we did that, October 2016. And that's where we got our first client. And it was because we had a booth at a big industry event. And the thing is when businesses go to these industry events and these conferences, they come with an open mind. They're there to learn. They're there to see what new vendors may be out there, what products are coming out. So they come open and ready to be sold, right? Not necessarily closed off like you're a cold person approaching them. And then when you're there, they just automatically assume that you're a semi-large company because you're there as a vendor.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I recognized right away with my small little crappy booth, where I went to Walmart and bought a rug to put down there because I didn't even have a carpet and it looked hideous. I didn't have any money to actually pay for a booth, so I bought tables at Walmart. I bought computers at Home Depot or Office Depot. And then when I was done, I returned all of it, right? Because I couldn't even afford to use it there.
Wow.
But after I think we were there for one more year in that small booth, and then realized the value of these conferences. And that's where we started to upgrade and start doing the big booths, right? Where we would invest $20,000, $30,000 going to these events. And then it really started to pay off, right? Because when they put you when you have a big booth and you're right next to these big players that they recognize these names, like these are staples, Fortune 500 companies, they put you at that same level that they hold those companies to, right? So when they walk past and here's John Deere and then here's Lawnline right next to them, like, well, fuck, Lawnline's got to be somebody if they're sitting here next to John Deere at this big ass booth, right? So that just gives you that instant credibility that this is probably a good potential player versus somebody who is just running general Facebook ads, that's sending out cold emails, that's doing all the cold calling with their VAs. Those don't have that trust factor to them. You see what I'm saying? You're a cold person reaching out to them versus setting up a big display in a place that they feel only reputable vendors are at, and they come approach to you, right? It's a completely different mind shift. You're going to close those people at that conference much better, much easier. And then you start seeing these people start seeing you all the time, right? Because in my industry, lawn landscape, there's a good 3 or 4 major conferences a year, right? And you want to be at all of them. Then there's all the little ones. And a lot of the same people will go to these different conferences. So as they keep seeing you over and over and over, they start building that brand recognition and that trust. And then don't forget the vendor partnerships. We made a huge deal with SiteOne. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the company SiteOne, but they are the largest landscape supplier in the country, almost 800 locations across the United States. They do like a few $billion in revenue. We are a Fortune 500. And we are their recommended marketing agency for all of their landscape companies. And spent almost 7 years building that reputation, or building that relationship to get that deal. And see, connecting with executives of a Fortune 500 when you're some broke kid from Lafayette, Indiana, is very difficult to do. And the way that we did it was we strategically placed our booths next to theirs at every show that we went to. So even today, if the Equip Expo is here in 2.5 weeks in Louisville, Kentucky, when you go to our booth, it is directly across the aisle from SiteOne, right? So that's how I got that is we made friends with them. We talked to them because, see, remember, the vendors, they have the same people at all their booths at every show. So when we would do these 5-6 shows a year, the people who are working the SiteOne booth are the same people at every show, right? So we would see them over and over, right? We would joke with them that this is the circuit, is what we called it back, because we're all the same people just going to these different locations setting up our booths. Well, one of the ladies that we became friends with that worked in the SiteOne booth ended up getting promoted and became the director of trade shows, which gave her a seat at the executives table. And she ended up telling us, like, hey, you guys really need to talk to these guys. We've been following them around for like 7 years, and I think we could really make a good partnership with them. And the person who would make that happen was at the table. And it's like, okay, I'll talk to them, and had a conversation with me. And then a couple months later, we signed a formal agreement that will be their official marketing agency for SiteOne landscapers. And that was 7 years in the making. But how it happened was being present at these industry events and getting to know the industry. It had nothing to do with the landscapers that were there. It actually had to do with connecting with the other vendors that are serving the same customers. Because remember, we're all serving the same customers. So let's find ways that we can work together and partner together. So that's a little good benefit that comes from being at these conferences and being at the trade shows.
Yeah, no, that was incredible. That was like some serious sauce for any agency owners out there. And I'll also mention that this is definitely one step or several steps beyond the just being known, because this is setting the frame, right? Of not just, well, they see a random Facebook ad of yours, or like you said, maybe you're just doing like some cold call or something, but they see you associated with all the top people. They see you have relationships with all the top people in companies. So you're building massive trust. And also, I think the first touch and the first impression is really important. So let's say the first time someone ever sees you, they see you next to all their favorite people, and maybe they're interviewing you, or, they're recommending you from their booth. It's like, well, I mean, I don't know who this company is, but clearly they're somebody. I mean, I have to check them out. I have to learn more about them. So I just think that frame is really good.
Absolutely. And for me, it's always been about giving too, right? Give more than you take. That's what it's all about. And it doesn't apply just to marketing agencies. It applies across the board to everybody. Like, let's take, for example, Crystal Insights, the software I'm about to launch. We've got almost 100 agencies signed up for that software, and I haven't put a single dollar into marketing yet.
Wow.
Right. The reason that we do is because for so many years, I've given so much to the industry, and I've built a reputation in the space. And that's why this software is already growing so quickly, is because of of me being one of the best known in the industry, right? It's not necessarily am I the best in the industry? No. But am I one of the best known? Yes. And that's what happens, right? It goes back to the best known versus, being the best. So give, right? And that's how I became one of the best known in this space, was not just building a larger agency for the industry. It was giving what I know back to other people who are trying to walk the same path that I walked.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, talk more about Crystal Insights. What made you think of that idea, and how's it going, and what is that?
Yeah, so Crystal Insights is actually an afterthought. Where it originally started from was our clients many years ago demanded from us that we need better reporting. We need to, we use call tracking software systems and pixels and all that every other marketing agency does, right? But when you use those lead tracking systems, it will tell you, how many phone calls did you have come in, how many form submissions did you have, all those types of things. But as we all know, those aren't actual representation of lead counts, right? And then how many of them are brand new to your business? How many of them are existing customers? So we would do what most agencies did. It's like, here's how many phone calls came in. Here's how many form submissions came in. And, this is what you spent, all of those types of things. And the clients have complained that, well, you're saying we got 600 leads this month and we only see 300 in our CRM. What's going on here? Why do your numbers never match up with what our numbers are? And then we would audit and, oh, well, there's a lot of spam in here. Or these are all people that were already customers that were calling in about their service because they clicked their Google business profile, right? And they called the number on the website. So there's a lot of non-lead and just regular business transactional type calls in there. So our response was, okay, well, we're going to have to do what every other agency does. And we're going to have to hire people that are going to listen to these phone calls, that are going to review these form submissions and be able to dictate what they are, right? So note down, is this a qualified lead? Is it not? What services are they looking for? That was about the gist of it, right? That's what those people would look for. And that helped, but it wasn't great. I would say that it would be 80-90% accurate. And of course, our clients demanded more. We want complete accuracy. And we all know it's almost impossible to do full accurate lead tracking across the internet because of the way that the internet works. But they wanted more accuracy and they wanted it faster. The problem is with the humans, right? We do 40,000 leads a month aggregated between all of our clients. So that's 40,000 phone calls and form submissions that's got to be reviewed, right? That takes some time. You got to actually physically listen to this stuff, note it down. So at best, our reporting data was like, I mean, this is best case scenario, 3 or 4 days behind, but usually like a week or so behind, right? So we're not even going to see this week's data until our call listeners can get to it later next week or the week after, because they've got all these leads that they're trying to get through. So we decided when AI came about, how can we use this AI to get more instant, faster, more accurate results? So we built that into our What Converts system, because What Converts is what we use to do all of our lead tracking. And we would connect into their API, pull down the leads and the calls and the recordings and all that, send that to AI, let AI analyze the same thing that the call listeners were analyzing, and then give it back to us, and we'll push it back up to What Converts. And that's what we did, and it worked really, really well. It's like, oh, wow, now we're actually getting all of our leads notated, and are they actual leads, are they not leads? And it could pick up extra things like how much money was quoted for this particular service, and a couple of other additional data points that were really good to know that our call listeners never actually did. And we had that up and running for about a month or so, and showed a couple of other agencies that I'm friends. It was like, hey, check this out, how we're using this for AI. And it's like, oh gosh, we need that. We really need that bad. And then I saw other big agencies, like say Josh Nelson, for example, was one. It's like, man, I'm trying to do something like this. It's like, how would you recommend we can do something like this? And I was like, man, you know what? We should probably just build this into a software, right? We had no intentions of building this into a software. We needed to solve a problem for Lawnline so that we could get better reporting for our clients. And it was working good in What Converts. But one of the things that was a downfall from the way that we did it is there was no way to look at the data aggregated together. So we were stuck within What Converts limitations. So that's when we decided, okay, well, let's just go ahead and build this into its own standalone software. We can build our own interfaces and we can look at data aggregated together. But more importantly, we could actually look at it overall for the agency. And then we can pull out things like what are call answer rates,
Hmm.
what percentage of the qualified leads are existing customers versus brand new customers, what questions do these people get asked, what kinds of complaints do our clients get, what are some of their competitors, who are some of the competitors that are being mentioned, right? These are important business decision data that everybody flies blind on, because the companies we work with, our average clients like 7 million a year, those business owners are not on the front lines answering the phones. So they don't really have a good pulse on what are the complaints that they're getting, or what questions are they being asked, or what praises are they getting, what compliments. And so we put all this together into a software that now enables both sides, the agency, to get that critical reporting that they needed. So those qualified leads and the call answer rates, because as we all know in this industry, my industry, you're the same way. People just don't answer their phones very well,
Yeah.
right? That's not unique to our industries. That seems to be every home service industry. But what was that call answer rate during business hours specifically? And what were those qualified leads? How many of them are new versus existing? That's what we need to know as the agency. Those are our big numbers. But on the flip side, we can now offer to our clients, what questions do you get asked? What complaints do you get? What praises do you get? And then the clients love that from their side, right? Because now they can make better business decisions based on the stuff that they see coming in. They can better train their people because outside of just those things that I mentioned, it also evaluates all of the representatives. So what was their confidence level? What was their knowledge of the products? What were some of their weaknesses? What were some of their strengths? What were some of their missed opportunities? So you can go in there and click on one of your employees that's a salesperson or on the phone, and see all of that data that the AI is basically just listening and pulling out 51 different data points from that phone call for both the agent and the customer. And you can then look at that data in any way, shape, or form that you want. So it's been a huge help to us. We've completely shifted how we do our reporting in Lawnline to focus on this approach of qualified leads versus missed opportunities. And those missed opportunities come from, I hate to say this number, and it's actually better than every agency that I've seen use our software so far, but during business hours, only about 70 to 72% of our phone calls get answered. Not Lawnlines. Lawnlines is 100%. That's one thing I've always pushed. But when you look at our clients, they only answer about 70% of the phone calls that come in during business hours. That's between, that's going to be like 30%. So when we go to talk to our clients and they tell us, okay, our budget this month for ads is going to be $3,000. Well, we should just respond to them, well, why don't you just take 1,000 of it and wad it up and throw it out the window, because you're not even answering the leads for that money as it sits right now. Right. But they never had those insights before, right? There was never a way to be able to know how many of your phone calls are being answered by a human during business hours without the help of AI technology. And now that we have AI technology, these are insights that have never been able to be known by a business owner before. And now they can make better decisions.
Yeah, definitely. No, I've seen that with my agency, and also with this marketing program that I'm a part of, Pest Control Millionaires. A lot of phone calls, because a lot of these guys, maybe they're smaller, let's say, because I know you're working with bigger companies, but especially these small guys, I'd say that maybe they're under 500K a year or so, and they're probably out teching. They're probably out, maybe it's just them, or maybe it's just them and one tech or two techs. And now they're not picking up the calls because they're in the attic, or they're spraying, or now they're trying to pick up the phone while doing the service, and they can't do that. And they're like, oh, well, I need more leads. It's like, no, dude, you've, like you said, you're losing like a third of your leads, maybe half of them. So that's really the part to focus on before generating tons and tons more leads. And
Absolutely. And that's why we qualify our clients, right? We have 4 things that we look for when we qualify a client to put them in a particular program that we offer. So we're not like a restaurant where you have a menu of items to choose from, right? We have 4 programs that we sell, and you have to fit within the programs. So like if you're under $1 million a year, that's our starter program. right? If you're between 1 and 3 million, that is our Accelerate program. If you're between 3 and 10 million, that's our Elite program, and 10 and over is our Titan program. If you're not at those revenues, you're not going to be at any of them. So what I'm saying here is that you can't be doing $300,000 a year and get on the Accelerate program. And the reason for that is exactly what you just said. You're not ready for it. That $3,000 or $4,000 a month program that we charge for that will generate so much business for you that it'll crush you as a $300,000 a year company. You're not ready for that yet. So that's why we ask those 4 questions about your people, your location, your services, and your revenue. So the people, we want to make sure you can answer the damn phone, right? That's one of the biggest things that we ask your people. How many people do you have in the office that can answer phones? If the answer is 0, then you're definitely going to be not a good fit if you're over $1 million in revenue, right? So you've got to have that. Then we look at the location, right? Are you out in a rural area and your goal is to add $3 million in revenue and you've got 10,000 people in your town? That's not going to be realistic, right? So that's why we asked that question. The third one was going to be your services. We're niche here, right? We don't do HVAC. We don't do roofs, right? If you come to me and you've got a roofing company, you want us to get roofs, I can't help you. I don't know anything about roofing, right? If you got a landscape company, we've got $100 million+ spent in landscaping. I can tell you all about that one, right? So we want to make sure that the services that you offer are ones that we know that we can confidently get you results for. And then that last one was going to be your revenue. In my industry of lawn and landscape, we don't have huge margins for the lawn and landscape companies. The very best, well-maintained and operated lawn and landscape companies that are focused on chemical treatments can typically see anywhere between 20 to maybe 25% net margins, maybe, right? But if you're focused in, say, like maintenance and mowing and cleanups, you're probably looking at like 8 to 10% net margins at best. And everybody else will fall somewhere in the middle. So lawn and landscape companies don't have huge margins, which means they can't operate like an HVAC company that spends 25% of their entire revenue on marketing. Recommend that you don't go over 5%. And as you get bigger, that gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So when you're $1 million company, we don't recommend that you spend any more than $50,000 a year on your overall marketing. That's not just us. That's all of your marketing put together that you're going to spend in the company, including your ad dollars. So you've got to stay within your britches. You know what I mean? You can't bite on more than you can chew. Otherwise, and as an agency, it took me a long time to realize that, especially as you're starting off, you want to take on everybody that you can, right? Especially if they're in your niche, right? Oh, I'm trying to get into lawn and landscape. I've got a lawn and landscape company here that wants to use us. Let's bring them on at all costs, right? And you will end up with more headaches if you do that versus if you cherry pick your own clients and work with people that you know you can get a result for. And when you do that, you're going to see results consistently. You're going to build a good reputation. Your clients will be very happy. And then you'll start to be able to work with the bigger companies. Because I'll tell you, working with the big companies are the easiest ones to work with. I don't know if you heard me saying it before, but all of our clients are all pretty much larger, except for we have that small program to please cite one when we made that deal, right? Before, we never worked with companies that were under $1 million. And they said, well, if we're going to make you guys our recommended marketing agency, you've got to be able to support all of our customers. So that's when we created that smaller marketing program at that point in time. Otherwise, I would have never done it. But the bigger companies, they're not, and I wouldn't, this is a bad word to use, but I'm going to use it anyway. They're not gambling, right? They're not putting it all on the line like a company that's doing 200,000 or 300,000 a year. You know, I had in my beginning days, I had a client still with me today that went and got a credit card that had a $5,000 limit, and they said, "This is all we got. If you can't make this happen, we're out of business."
Yeah.
Right. It's like that. That's not a good feeling to be in as an agency owner, that you've got to try to make this happen. And I ended up taking it on. I shouldn't have. I actually wrote a whole blog post about it, actually, you can read. And that client is still with me today. They do millions of dollars a year now in revenue. So that one is not working out, but I wouldn't say they all work out like that for sure. So make sure that you take clients that are ready for the programs that you deliver, right? And preset those programs. Don't have, well, what do you want, right? People don't know what they want. They want to grow their business. So they come to you. You need to be a consultant to them. You need to set yourself as the expert. Well, you're currently at $2 million a year in revenue. You want to get to 5 million over the next 2 to 3 years. Here's how you do it, right? Because they don't know how to do it. That's why they're coming to you. And when you take that approach, you're going to close a lot more. And we only present one program, by the way. So if they come to us and they're at $2 million a year, they're getting the Accelerate program presented to them, and that's it. They don't even know we have 3 other programs that's available for them. So just
Dang,
little
dude.
tidbits about how we sell.
No, that was agency gold, man. Again, that was awesome. Really like that. I wanted to pivot here, and I wanted to jump into marketing strategies.
Okay.
And we'll talk about this for maybe the last 5-10 minutes or so. But what are you seeing is working best? And also, just preface with this, that it seems like everything is changing so much. Everyone's so worried about all the AI stuff, and like you said, there's so much new software, so many new ways to track. You even have your own new software company. What are you seeing in marketing, and what's working well for your clients?
Right now, we are in a unique time for marketing. A time that we've never seen. Our industry, with the influence of AI, is going to be impacted more than most industries are. For us, AI is the equivalent of the invention of the tractor for the farmer. Right? Yeah. And when the tractor was invented, that changed everything for the farmer. And that's going to change everything for us too. It's changed everything from the way we produce and fulfill our work to how we analyze our work to how we get results and the actual results that come, and even the types of platforms that are driving those results. I very much believe, and I would bet a lot of money on it, here in the next 1 to 2 years, you're going to start seeing ads in these AI platforms like ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and Gemini, and all of these are going to start showing their ads. So that's going to bring in all of these new platforms that we're going to have to worry about.
Oh, yeah.
For years, there's been, for our industry, 3 major players, and that's it, right? There's Google, there's Microsoft, there's Meta, right? Those 3 drove the bulk of it. And Google and Meta drive 90%, 95%, and Microsoft gets that other little 5 or 10%.
Yeah.
Right? Now, we're going to have every major AI platform as its own independent platform that we're going to have to optimize for, run ads for. So imagine, let's just take, the 4 biggest ones. Off the top of my head, that's going to be things like ChatGPT, that's going to be Claude, Gemini, Grok, and Perplexity. There's 5. Let's go with those 5. That's going to be 5 advertising platforms that we're all going to have to learn and figure out how to optimize best for those platforms, right? And now, but there's also a million others out there too, like say Manus, which is a newer and upcoming one that's still very large. It's going to have ad platforms. So all of these AI platforms are going to become new sources for leads that we're going to have to figure out how to build, optimize, track, and do all of that for. But that's not there yet. It's not there now. I actually did a session in 7-Figure Agency a few weeks ago about how to get ranked in the AI models. So when somebody's talking to ChatGPT, well, who's the best pest control company near me? How do you show your clients there? And we actually did a pretty decent deep dive in trying to understand where the AI models are getting this data from. And basically what it turned into was do good normal SEO, write good content, and you'll show up in these models. Right? Yeah. All of the ones that were getting recommended to, as of today, on October 3rd, 2025, this could be different, October 4th, 2025. Yeah. As of today, they were using their internet search tools, reviewing the top X number of listings, and then pulling in the ones that it felt was best based on the one snippet of content that came from those pages. So generally there's a 1 to 2 sentence snippet that came from each page in the result, and the AI made the decision based on that. So later down the road, maybe they will go further down the pages and find, 20, 30, 40 options. Maybe they will actually crawl all the individual pages. Maybe they'll hold their own indexes. Who knows where it's going to go? But that's what we saw now, is if you do standard SEO pretty well, you'll get recognized and shown in the AI models. But that's still not what's driving. For us right now, the biggest driver is still the biggest driver it's been for the last couple of years, which is Google local service ads. And I think it will continue to be that way, at least over the next 12 months. But after that, I see the AI models becoming the #1 driver for new leads to come in. Maybe not right away, but you're going to start to see that uptick here over the next 12 months where, okay, these guys are now starting to become a major player in the lead generation space, not just as AI model to get recipes or whatever that people use them for.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Okay, so local service ads, biggest one for your clients right now. But moving forward, you see that the AI models and specifically advertising in those models is going to be super important. Also, that, and I completely agree with you on this. Someone asked me in my group yesterday, and I said essentially the same thing. It's like, oh, there's so many different LLMs and so many different ways to show up. And, these gurus are telling me this and that. I'm like, dude, if you do proper SEO, like you're already showing up well on Google, you're ranking for all these keywords and getting traffic on Google, then you should be doing pretty well on these other platforms as well. It's not like some whole new way to optimize. You're essentially doing the same stuff, right?
100%. And I want to also throw in there too, the thing about SEO is like, I know we all talk about it and we offer it, we have it on here, we do SEO, right? But how you're successful with SEO is putting your stuff out there and being transparent. That's all it comes down to, right? You want to produce content. You can't rank and show up for something if you don't say anything out there, right? You don't want to be the best kept secret. Open up your doors and talk about what you do openly. That way the search engines can find it, right? You have to be genuine. You have to actually produce good results. When I say produce good results, like if you're a pest control company, you need to have happy customers that are willing to review you, who are willing to tag you on social media, who are willing to engage with you, and who are willing to refer you and do all these things. And platforms like Google that have been focused on ranking websites and web pages for the last 30 years now, they've gotten very good at using many different flags and touch points to determine who's going to be good companies to show. And that's where the reputation and the content and the referrals and the social engagements, and even down to things like people hitting driving directions on maps, right? That Google sees this company puts a lot out there and engages a lot. They've got to be somewhat decent, right? And that's they end up getting shown. So there's no special sauce, secret tricks. It's just doing the things that you should do as a business that's going to get you those SEO results. And that's effectively what's going to get you the AI results too.
Absolutely. Love that, man. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people that are using like smoke and mirrors and, oh, here's the latest trick, here's the latest tool. But like you said, it's much more simple. Just like do a good job, demonstrate what you do, get the reviews, make sure that you're populating your website with all the stuff you do, all that stuff. So
100%.
cool. We'll wrap up the podcast here. The last question I've got for you, Tony, is what is your message for local business owners or for local marketers? So what do you want to tell them? What do you think they need to know?
A couple of things. When it comes to the marketing side for local business owners, don't be afraid to spend, for one. Don't don't go looking for the cheapest. We're not selling macaroni and cheese off the shelf in a store here. This is not a commodity product, right? So don't be afraid to hire somebody that knows what they're doing. Okay. You want a higher chance to win, right? Going back to, say, the gambling, I used that metaphor earlier. Let's use it again here. It's one thing if you're going to sit down and gamble $5 at a table where you're likely to lose versus gambling $100 where you're more likely to win, right? So spend the money to gamble the higher dollars, but do it on a table where you're far more likely to win based on the reputation. So that's one thing that I see a lot from small business owners is they don't want to put that kind of money out. They don't see it as an investment. They see it as an expense, and it's not as an investment. So that's what I would put out there for them. For everybody, embrace the AI. AI is coming and it's here and it's changing our world, whether you like it or not. It's like the people when cell phones first started coming out or when the internet first coming out, don't fight it. If you fight it, you're going to be left behind. Even if you just learn the basics of how to use it, you're going to be far better off. And as you dive more and more into it, you're going to realize more of its applications and uses where it can help you become more efficient, more accurate, do things faster and better, and all those types of things. So I see a lot of people that are still on the AI hate train right now,
Mm.
and embrace it. You learn it, because you will 100% be left behind if you don't.
Amen. So be willing to invest, be willing to take those calculated risks, and learn about AI. Start using it, start trying to implement it yourself. Awesome. I think that was some great points there, Tony. And I think this has been a great podcast. I've learned a lot from you. And man, you are I feel like you've been on fire. You've had several like really good segments here. So
Thank you.
I thank you so much for coming on the show. And where can people find you and, connect with you on social media?
I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn mostly. That's where you'll find me. So just search for my name. Any of my companies on there. I'm a pretty open person and keep everything public. So feel free to reach out to me there and connect with me.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, definitely go follow Tony on Facebook and LinkedIn. And anything else you'd like to plug or promote?
No, I would throw one other thing in there. No plugging or promoting, just more of keep in mind every investment is not about money. Some of your best and strongest and investments that are going to return the most for you are from your time. When I started with AI a couple years ago, when it first got hot, I didn't know anything about AI. In fact, I was on the AI hate train. I was an engineer. AI is dumb. It doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
And I spent my time to learn about AI, to understand it. That was an investment that I made that costed me $0 to learn about it. And today, it handles probably 40 to 50% of my agency's fulfillment. And I've started 2 other software companies based on it. So something I hated 3 years ago that I didn't know anything about, I invested my time. And now my investment in time to that AI is about to surpass anything my agency could have ever thought it would be able to do.
Dang. So you have to be open to change now more than ever. Love that, man.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Sweet. Well, I think this has been a great show, like I said, and thanks so much for coming on, man. This has been a blast.
Thanks for having me, Danny. I appreciate it.
Of course, man.